With every passing moment, it becomes more and more clear that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is as good as dead. Like, there's just no recovering from this. If you look at the recent stats, it really highlights that the interest surrounding this game has all but completely disappeared, and it would take nothing short of a miracle or a complete overhaul that would take way too much time, money, manpower, and resources to invest into something that has lost so much spark and interest for this to be a viable live service in the long term. Besides seeing the recent reviews being mixed compared to the more positive reviews we saw in the early days, there's the fact that the player base of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, just months after its launch, has sunk to an all-time low. And this is very apparent if you look at the Steam charts data that is currently on display. I mean, look at this. There's a 24-hour peak of just 200 players as of the recording of this video. 146 played a day ago. We are now at a point where Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is in the low triple digits, which, I mean, is such a minuscule amount of players that it is going to impact the multiplayer aspect of this live service. People are going to have trouble finding other players to matchmake with to play the co-op aspect of this game, co-op being a huge emphasis of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And this is kind of a similar trend that we saw with Marvel's Avengers, which similarly dipped to these kinds of numbers, except what's crazy is that Marvel's Avengers is currently a dead live service, as in it's been delisted from stores and you can still access it, but they're not updating the game. They're only maintaining the exoskeleton that remains, and the only players who can access this game at this point are those who have already purchased it, because again, the game has been delisted from stores and they're no longer making new copies for it. This dead live service had more players a day ago than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League did, by a slight amount, but you know, it still says a lot about the current state of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and how little hope, unfortunately, there is for this game that once upon a time people looked forward to and then were skeptical about after they heard it'd be a live service, before all of their fears were realized when the game came out and had all the problems that people were kind of anticipating it would have. Hell, I mean, there was a point where those numbers dipped even lower. If you look at Windows Central's article, they noticed that at one point the game was at sub 118 concurrent players, which bodes ill for the future of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which, yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. And you can see right here, those stats fully represented in screenshots that highlight, Fallout 76 gained a huge boost from the show that recently came out. And of course, Helldivers 2 is thriving because it's just a good-ass game, a fun-ass game that is reasonably priced, more than reasonably priced, and has great, consistent updates and just feels like a cohesive, well-realized experience. And so, yeah, I mean, once you get to those kinds of concurrent player numbers, and I mean, I've covered so many live services that have gone through this cycle, it's dead. Like, it there's no other way to put it. There's no sugarcoating it. And so what's going to happen with this game that is currently online only? You cannot play even the single player campaign that can be played solo without an internet connection. Though it was stated by Rocksteady that they will be adding an offline mode at some point in the future. So for the sake of game preservation, at the very least, I hope they will add that patch before they, I think, inevitably kill this game off. I believe that the co-op aspect will just not be worth maintaining in the long term, so that part will go away pretty soon. Or they may keep the co-op component online for a while, but may not ultimately fulfill their planned roadmap for this game, which included new content and new characters like Mrs. Freeze, Deadshot, Solder, and Deathstroke. At the very least, I hope that if they are unable to complete the roadmap, they just release all the characters at once so people at least have that instead of letting that content go to waste. I mean, recently somebody like a hacker managed to data mine and play as Deathstroke before the character's intended release, so it's clear that the files are there for these characters, so might as well at least get these characters out and just forget about the content that they had planned and just cut your losses, because the Season 1 content update and the Joker DLC felt like a pretty grim outlook for the kind of content updates we can expect. Season 1 was completely panned for how lackluster it was when it comes to new content additions. It was basically the same missions and a lot of grindy elements to unlock Joker. Adding insult to injury is that it was very apparent why Joker was put behind a grind wall. It's because there's an option to pay to unlock Joker from the outset, which felt really scummy when the folks at Rocksteady promised that all characters would just be given out for free. And yes, you can unlock Joker for free, but the fact that you have to go through a big grind to unlock the new character instead of allowing you to grind as the new character from the outset, essentially strong-arming you into paying extra to get a more fun experience with the Joker character. Like, none of that stuff was well received at all. Joker itself feels very similar to play as all the other characters because they all shoot guns. He does have, a more unique mobility option and a unique ult. But overall, Joker and every character in this game does not feel as distinct as it should. And then there's the lack of story content for Joker. They just drop the character in there, but they don't make substantial additions to the story and campaign elements. They recycle the Green Lantern boss fight for the final battle of the Season 1 content release. It's all just very disappointing and lackluster, and it feels like a pretty good indicator of what we could expect in the future. And if this is kind of where the game's headed in the long term, then I cannot imagine interest being sparked for this game. I can't imagine this game being rejuvenated. But in terms of people want to just revisit the campaign, that does have some fun moments here and there. That is definitely a priority that should be kind of realized before the game is killed off. I suspect that it will go down the same route as Marvel's Avengers, where it was delisted from stores, but people who purchase the game will still have access to online functionalities and basic maintenance. But in the long term, when they decide to shut down servers, that's when the question of what will happen to these games kind of becomes relevant, especially after people witnessed what happened with The Crew 1, which is a game that has not only been delisted and decommissioned, but also Ubisoft has decided to strip licenses for this game. And this is also an online-only game that does have a campaign that you could technically play single player if they decided to make this an offline game or take away the online mandate. But Ubisoft instead just decided to nuke the game from existence and essentially steal this game from people's library, steal a product that people spent money on that Ubisoft can technically legally do because of their end user license agreement and because current laws don't protect customers from this kind of situation. But from just a moral perspective, it just obviously doesn't feel good when somebody does the equivalent of sneaking into your house and stealing your copy of a video game, just done so much more subtly and digitally and instantly due to the digital nature of these products. It's worth noting that with Marvel's Avengers, you do need internet access to start the single player component. It's similar to what Ubisoft did with Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora and what they will be doing with Star Wars Outlaws, where you do need an initial internet connection that downloads a certain patch that will allow you to access the single player component and play that offline after the fact. Unless they patch this requirement out, what this means is that way in the future, if servers are shut down and this patch is no longer downloadable, you won't be able to start the single player component of these games. If ways down the line the game is uninstalled and you decide to just revisit it for whatever reason, even physical copies won't be able to alleviate this situation. And with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, the situation's even worse because it requires a persistent online connection to continue playing even the single player component of the game. It's not just access the internet once, download a patch, and you can play it offline. It's you got to maintain an internet connection, and if that goes away, if you're in the middle of a single player session, you'll be booted out of the game and you'll lose access to the game. They better patch that aspect out before they decide to kill this game off and allow people to, at the very least, go back to it for game preservation reasons, and because some people did enjoy what elements of what the campaign had to offer, and maybe would like to revisit it years down the line just for old time's sake. Whatever it is, the fact remains that people bought this product, and if they want to maintain the element of being able to access this game, they should be able to, because they spent money on this game. Otherwise, this game might serve as yet another great exhibit for the Stop Killing Games movement that essentially dictates that government officials should look into the way video game companies are killing off games and making them inaccessible, and essentially demanding that on some level games that are decommissioned remain functional and accessible to people who bought and purchased these products. In the UK, the petition for requiring video game publishers to keep games they have sold in a working state has gained enough signatures that the government will be responding, not quite at the level of the petition being considered for debate in Parliament, but this is still substantial enough where it might spark some government intervention. We'll see. Only time will tell. But for now, yeah, this is the state of Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Another live service that, shot for the stars, but ultimately was too ambitious for a studio that was better known for its single-player endeavors and that specialized more in those story-driven campaign experiences, but decided to take a shot at a genre that is very difficult to get right, a genre that is very oversaturated, that requires you to really stand out from a gameplay perspective and progression loop perspective. And Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was just a very milquetoast game, and its future, whether it'll be actually accessible later on or whether people who spend $70+ on this game will have wasted their money on something that will be completely decommissioned and not preserved at all that stuff remains to be seen. But until then, I figured I should give you a heads up on what's going on with this game. And that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and what you think the future holds for this game with the current concurrent player numbers on Steam. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.